I sat in my corner office on the 47th floor, staring at the transaction alert on my screen. Another withdrawal from our joint retirement account, $50,000, transferred to an offshore gambling site. My husband Mark had no idea that as the newly appointed senior fund manager at Blackstone Capital Management, I now oversaw the very pension fund he was systematically destroying. The irony was almost poetic. For years, Mark had dismissed my financial expertise, insisting on managing our retirement planning himself. "It's complex stuff, honey," he'd say with that condescending smile I'd grown to hate. "You focus on your little investment job. I'll handle the big picture." My little investment job had just made me responsible for over $12 billion in pension assets, including the fund that held our retirement savings. I pulled up Mark's complete transaction history, my forensic accounting, training kicking in automatically. The pattern was clear and devastating. Over the past 6 months, he had gambled away nearly $400,000 of our retirement savings. Each loss led to larger bets, chasing the impossible dream of recovery, creating a death spiral of increasing desperation. The offshore gambling sites he used were carefully chosen to avoid detection, or so he thought. What Mark didn't realize was that my position gave me access to sophisticated tracking systems designed specifically to identify and monitor such transactions. Every bet, every loss, every attempt at concealment was documented in our security protocols. My phone buzzed, a text from Mark. "Working late tonight, don't wait up." Another lie. The transaction monitoring system showed he was currently active on Royal Stakes Casino, burning through $1,000 hands of online blackjack. Our security algorithms flagged his pattern as typical of addiction-driven behavior. Increasing bet sizes, shorter time between wagers, preference for high-risk games with quick results. I took a deep breath, centering myself as I had learned to do during high-stakes investment decisions. The woman Mark believed was focused on simple portfolio management was now in a position to not only expose his gambling addiction, but to determine the fate of his entire financial future. The pension fund he was desperately trying to withdraw from was under my direct control. Opening my secure terminal, I began documenting everything. Each transaction was categorized and cross-referenced, creating a comprehensive picture of progressive addiction and financial destruction. The skills Mark had dismissed as unnecessary for household finances were now building an irrefutable case of fiduciary abuse. My executive assistant knocked softly, entering with the afternoon reports. "Mrs. Stevens, the Pension Oversight Committee. Meeting is in 10 minutes. They're expecting your recommendations on the new withdrawal restriction protocols." Perfect timing. The very protocols we were implementing would directly impact Mark's ability to access and gamble away our retirement funds. The system I had helped design would soon cut off his access to the money he was so carelessly destroying. I gathered my materials for the meeting, including the proposal for enhanced security measures on high-risk withdrawals. Mark's pattern of behavior had actually helped shape these new protocols, though he would never know it. His desperate attempts to hide his gambling had revealed vulnerabilities in the current system that we were now addressing. As I walked to the conference room, my phone buzzed again. Another withdrawal attempt from our retirement account, $75,000 this time. Larger than ever. Mark was getting careless, taking bigger risks. He still believed he was cleverly concealing his activities from his financially naive wife. The committee members were already seated when I arrived, these titans of finance waiting to hear my recommendations. None of them knew that my proposal was partially shaped by personal experience, that I intimately understood the behaviors we were designing these protocols to prevent. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil beneath my professional exterior. "Today we're discussing new security measures for pension fund withdrawals, specifically focusing on patterns indicating high-risk behaviors such as gambling addiction. The Pension Oversight Committee unanimously approved my proposed security measures. Within 24 hours, our IT team would implement new protocols that would effectively lock down high-risk withdrawals across all managed accounts, including Mark's increasingly desperate attempts to access our retirement funds. Outstanding presentation, Sarah. Richard Montgomery, the committee chair, commented as we left the conference room. The behavioral analysis algorithms you've developed for identifying addiction-driven withdrawals are groundbreaking. This could become the industry standard. If only he knew how personal that research had been. Every pattern detection feature, every security trigger had been refined based on Mark's actual behavior. His gambling addiction had unwittingly helped create the very system that would now stop him. Back in my office, I watched the real-time implementation of our new protocols. The system was already flagging Mark's recent activities for review. Multiple withdrawals in short succession, increasing amounts, transfers to known gambling destinations, all now required additional verification and management approval. Approval that would have to go through me. My phone lit up with an incoming call from Mark. Right on schedule. He'd just discovered his latest withdrawal attempt had been declined. I let it go to voicemail, maintaining the fiction that I was occupied with routine investment work. The subsequent text messages grew increasingly panicked. Something's wrong with the retirement account. Getting some kind of security error. Need to make an urgent transfer for a business opportunity. Call me ASAP. I documented each message methodically. The progression from confusion to desperation was textbook addiction behavior. Our new system was already identifying similar patterns in other accounts, protecting countless families from the same destruction Mark had inflicted on our savings. My executive assistant appeared at the door. Mrs. Stevens, the risk management team needs your approval on some flagged transactions. They say it's urgent. She handed me a tablet displaying the alert queue. Mark's latest withdrawal attempts were at the top of the list, each one larger than the last. Decline all transactions showing gambling-related patterns, I instructed, my voice professional and detached. Implement full security protocols and prepare fraud investigation reports for each case. The irony of signing off on a fraud investigation into my own husband's activities wasn't lost on me. By evening, the new system had blocked over 30 attempted withdrawals from Mark's account. His behavior grew more erratic with each denial. The monitoring algorithms tracked his increasingly desperate attempts to circumvent the security measures, trying different amounts, various transfer methods, alternative receiving accounts. The pattern recognition is working perfectly, our head of IT security reported. The system's identifying and blocking sophisticated attempts to disguise high-risk withdrawals. Your behavioral models are predicting attempt patterns with remarkable accuracy. Of course they were accurate. They were based on intimate knowledge of addict behavior, learned through months of watching Mark's escalating desperation. Every evasion tactic he tried had been anticipated and countered because I had documented his previous patterns so thoroughly. When I finally left the office that night, my phone showed 27 missed calls from Mark. The casino's monitoring feed showed he was still online, desperately trying to place bets with whatever funds he could access. The man who had insisted on controlling our finances was now completely cut off from the resources he had nearly destroyed. Driving home, I reflected on the strange symmetry of the situation. Mark's dismissal of my financial capabilities had led him to hide his gambling addiction, believing I wouldn't understand or notice. That same underestimation had allowed me to rise to a position where I could not only see everything, but had the power to stop it. The very skills he had denigrated were now being used to save what remained of our retirement, and potentially his life. Mark was waiting in the kitchen when I arrived home, his usual polished appearance noticeably disheveled. Empty whiskey glass on the counter, laptop open to his blocked retirement account login. The facade of the successful business consultant was cracking under the strain of his thwarted addiction. "Something's wrong with our accounts," he began immediately, trying to maintain his authoritative tone despite the slight slur in his words. All my transfers are being blocked. We need to call the pension fund administrators immediately. I set my briefcase down carefully, removing my suit jacket with deliberate calm. The administrators are already aware of the situation, Mark. In fact, they've been monitoring your gambling activities for quite some time. His face went through a rapid series of expressions: confusion, denial, anger, fear. Gambling? That's ridiculous. I've been making legitimate investments, managing our retirement strategy. You wouldn't understand the complexity of losing $400,000 on offshore gambling sites. I interrupted, my voice level. Of making increasingly desperate withdrawals to chase your losses. Of trying to disguise casino transfers as business expenses. Actually, I understand it perfectly. It's literally my job to understand it. Your job? He laughed dismissively, but there was an edge of uncertainty in his voice. You manage basic investment portfolios. This is sophisticated financial. I'm the senior fund manager at Blackstone Capital Management, I cut in. I oversee the pension fund you've been systematically draining. Every withdrawal, every gambling loss, every attempt to hide your addiction has been documented by my security systems. The color drained from his face as the implications hit him. His hands gripped the kitchen counter for support as his carefully constructed world began to crumble. That's not possible. You can't be. The new security protocols blocking your withdrawals? I designed them. The behavioral analysis tracking your gambling patterns. My algorithms. The fraud. Investigation now examining your activities? Under my direct supervision. Mark sank onto a kitchen stool, his assumed authority evaporating. Why didn't you tell me about your position? He asked weakly. You never asked, I replied simply. You were too busy explaining how I couldn't understand complex finances to ever question what I actually did. Too focused on hiding your gambling to notice my career advancement. I can explain everything, he started, desperation creeping into his voice. These weren't really gambling activities. They were calculated risks. Save it for the addiction counselor, I interrupted, sliding a business card across the counter. You have two choices. Enter treatment immediately, with full disclosure of your activities and acceptance of monitored recovery protocols, or face a fraud investigation and divorce proceedings. Either way, you've lost access to any funds you might gamble away. His hands shook as he picked up the card. You've thought of everything, haven't you? That's what happens when you underestimate someone's financial expertise, I replied. They might just end up in a position to save you from yourself. The weeks following our confrontation brought dramatic changes. Mark entered an intensive treatment program for gambling addiction, his professional confidence replaced by the raw vulnerability of someone facing their demons. The man who had once dismissed my financial acumen now depended entirely on my management of his recovery process. Your wife's intervention quite literally saved your life, Dr. Anderson, the treatment center's director, told Mark during a joint session. The security systems she implemented prevented what could have been a complete financial catastrophe. Many gambling addicts don't get stopped until they've lost everything. I attended these sessions not as the supportive, financially naive wife Mark had always assumed me to be, but as a financial authority implementing a structured recovery plan. My position at Blackstone gave me access to resources most addiction counselors could only dream of: comprehensive transaction monitoring, behavior pattern analysis, predictive risk assessment. The protocols Mrs. Stevens developed are revolutionary, Dr. Anderson commented during a strategy meeting. Combining addiction psychology with financial security measures creates a much more effective recovery framework. We're already implementing similar systems for other patients. My professional team helped design a comprehensive monitoring program for Mark's rehabilitation. Every financial transaction, no matter how small, was tracked and analyzed. Behavioral algorithms flagged any patterns that might indicate relapse risk. The same systems that had documented his addiction now guided his recovery. The level of Supervision is extraordinary, Richard noted during a pension committee review. The addiction prevention protocols you've implemented are attracting attention throughout the industry. Several major funds are requesting access to your behavioral analysis models. Mark's recovery process revealed deeper issues than just gambling addiction. During therapy sessions, he was forced to confront the psychological patterns that had led him to dismiss and undervalue my capabilities. The professional facade he had maintained, the assumed superiority that had characterized our marriage, crumbled under therapeutic scrutiny. Your need to control financial decisions despite your wife's superior expertise suggests significant insecurity, Dr. Anderson observed. The gambling may have been an expression of deeper issues around masculinity and professional identity. I maintained professional distance throughout the process, letting the treatment team handle the psychological aspects while I focused on financial security and recovery monitoring. The woman Mark had patronized for years now controlled every aspect of his financial life, a reversal he struggled to accept but couldn't deny. Progress came slowly but steadily. Each successful day without gambling attempts strengthened the effectiveness of our monitoring systems. Mark's patterns of behavior, once used to refine addiction detection algorithms, now help develop better recovery support protocols. His journey from addict to recovery success story was documented in meticulous detail, providing valuable data for helping others. Your case is becoming a model for integrated addiction recovery, Dr. Anderson explained during a progress review. The combination of psychological treatment and sophisticated financial monitoring creates accountability that standard programs can't match. You're helping establish new standards for addiction intervention. My work at Blackstone expanded significantly as the success of our addiction prevention protocols gained industry attention. Major pension funds across the country began implementing versions of our security systems, using the behavioral analysis models I had developed through monitoring Mark's addiction. The impact of your work is transforming how we approach financial security, Richard told me during a board meeting. What began as specific protocols for gambling addiction has evolved into comprehensive protection against various forms of financial self-destruction. You've created something revolutionary here. The algorithms we developed could now identify multiple types of destructive financial behavior patterns. Gambling was just the beginning. Our systems could detect signs of addiction-driven spending, compulsive trading, and other high-risk activities before they caused catastrophic losses. Your behavioral models have applications far beyond pension fund protection, observed Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a prominent financial psychiatrist consulting with our team. The pattern recognition capabilities you've developed could help prevent numerous types of financial crises at both personal and institutional levels. I found myself regularly speaking at industry conferences, explaining how intimate knowledge of addict behavior could be transformed into effective prevention systems. Without ever mentioning Mark specifically, I used the insights gained from documenting his addiction to help others create better financial safeguards. The key is understanding that financial addiction follows predictable patterns, I explained during a keynote address. By identifying these patterns early, we can implement protective measures before catastrophic losses occur. Prevention is far more effective than recovery. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mark's dismissal of my financial capabilities had led directly to my emergence as a leading expert in financial addiction prevention. His assumption that I couldn't understand complex finance had pushed me to develop systems now protecting billions in pension assets. Our security team expanded rapidly, adding specialists in behavioral psychology and addiction treatment to complement our financial expertise. We were creating a new field that bridged the gap between mental health and financial security, developing interventions that addressed both the practical and psychological aspects of financial addiction. What you've built here goes beyond traditional financial security, Dr. Chen noted during a strategy session. You're essentially creating early warning systems for self-destructive behavior, using financial patterns as indicators of underlying psychological issues. The applications are enormous. My office became a hub for innovation in financial protection systems. Teams of analysts worked constantly to refine our behavioral models, using anonymous data from thousands of accounts to improve pattern recognition and intervention protocols. Each refinement made the systems more effective at identifying potential problems before they became crises. The professional recognition was gratifying, but what really mattered was knowing we were helping prevent others from experiencing what I had discovered in my own marriage. Every blocked transaction, every early intervention, every successful prevention of financial disaster represented a family protected from the devastation of addiction. "Your work is literally saving lives," Richard commented after reviewing the latest impact statistics. Financial destruction often leads to complete personal collapse. By stopping these patterns early, you're preventing countless personal tragedies. As Mark progressed through his recovery program, our marriage underwent a fundamental transformation. The dynamics that had defined our relationship for years, his assumed financial superiority, my accepted subordinate role, were completely reversed. Every financial decision, no matter how small, now required my approval and oversight. "It's a challenging adjustment," Dr. Anderson observed during a couples therapy session, "moving from a relationship built on financial dominance to one requiring complete transparency and accountability. Many couples don't survive this transition." Mark struggled particularly with the daily reality of his new position. Simple transactions that he'd once handled without thought now required explanation and approval. His business expenses, client meetings, even lunch purchases were monitored and analyzed by the same systems he'd once dismissed as unnecessary. "I never realized how much of my identity was tied to financial control," he admitted during one therapy session. "Having to justify every purchase, explain every transaction, it forces me to confront how I used money to maintain an illusion of superiority. The monitoring systems I'd developed tracked everything with ruthless efficiency. Each time Mark used his credit card, made a purchase, or accessed any financial account, behavioral analysis algorithms assessed the transaction for risk patterns. The very technology he'd helped inspire through his addiction now governed his daily life. The comprehensive nature of your oversight system is remarkable," Dr. Chen noted during a case review. "It's not just tracking transactions, it's analyzing patterns of behavior, emotional triggers, stress indicators. You've created a complete financial rehabilitation environment." Watching Mark adapt to this new reality was enlightening. The confident financial expert who had once patronizingly explained basic concepts to me now sought my guidance on fundamental money management. His professional persona, built largely on assumed authority, required complete reconstruction. "Your wife's position at Blackstone isn't just about monitoring your recovery," Dr. Anderson explained to Mark. "She's become a recognized authority on financial addiction prevention. The system she developed using your case as a model are now industry standards." This revelation seemed to particularly impact Mark's perception. Learning that his attempts to hide his addiction had actually helped create revolutionary security protocols forced him to confront the full extent of his underestimation of my capabilities. "I built my whole identity around the belief that I understood finance better than you," he acknowledged during a particularly honest therapy session. "Finding out that you not only saw through my deception, but used it to develop sophisticated prevention systems, it's humbling." Our home life developed new patterns. The evening financial discussions that had once consisted of Mark condescendingly explaining his decisions now became careful reviews of monitored transactions. Each purchase was documented, each expense justified, each decision examined for potential risk indicators. The success of our addiction prevention protocols led to rapid expansion beyond pension fund protection. Major financial institutions began implementing versions of our behavioral analysis systems using the patterns we'd identified to protect their clients from various forms of financial self-destruction. Your models have applications we hadn't even considered, Richard explained during an implementation review. Credit card companies are using modified versions to identify addiction-driven spending. Investment firms are adapting the protocols to detect compulsive trading patterns. You've created a whole new approach to financial protection. The technology evolved far beyond its origins in gambling addiction prevention. Our algorithms could now recognize early signs of multiple destructive behaviors, allowing intervention before significant damage occurred. Each new application revealed additional patterns that helped refine the system's effectiveness. The preventive capabilities are extraordinary, observed James Morrison, CEO of a major credit card company implementing our protocols. We're stopping destructive patterns before they escalate into life-destroying events. The behavioral analysis models you've developed are saving people from themselves. I found myself leading a rapidly growing team of specialists, combining expertise in finance, psychology, and addiction treatment. We were essentially creating a new field, behavioral, financial security, that bridged traditional boundaries between mental health and financial management. What makes your approach unique is the integration of psychological understanding with financial technology, Dr. Chen explained during a strategy session. You're not just tracking transactions, you're analyzing the behavioral patterns that drive financial decisions. It's a completely new paradigm for financial security. The systems we developed became increasingly sophisticated at recognizing subtle indicators of potential problems, changes in spending patterns, timing of transactions, choice of vendors. Every detail could contribute to identifying emerging destructive behaviors before they became crises. Mark's case, though never explicitly identified, became a valuable teaching model for training financial security professionals. The progression of his addiction, the techniques he'd used to hide his activities, and the patterns that had revealed his behavior provided perfect examples for understanding how financial destruction typically develops. Your personal experience with addiction detection and prevention has created something revolutionary, Richard noted during a board presentation. You've transformed intimate knowledge of destructive behavior into systematic protection for millions of people. It's an extraordinary achievement. The impact extended beyond individual financial protection. Corporate security teams began using our behavioral analysis models to detect employee fraud. Investment firms implemented versions of our protocols to identify risky trading patterns. Government agencies adapted our systems for tracking suspicious financial activities. 1 year after implementing our addiction prevention protocols, I sat in my office reviewing the system's impact statistics. Over 10,000 potential financial disasters prevented, millions in savings protected, countless families spared the devastation of addiction-driven destruction. The woman Mark had once dismissed as financially naive had created something that was transforming the industry. Your work has established entirely new standards for financial protection, Richard commented during our annual review. What began as specific protocols for gambling addiction has evolved into comprehensive safeguards against multiple forms of financial self-destruction. You've fundamentally changed how we approach financial security. Mark's recovery progress provided ongoing insights that helped refine our systems. Each stage of his rehabilitation revealed new patterns to monitor, additional indicators to track, better ways to prevent relapse. His journey from addict to recovery success story continued to inform improvements in our prevention protocols. It's remarkable how your personal experience shaped such effective systemic solutions, Dr. Chen observed during a consultation. You transformed intimate knowledge of addiction behavior into sophisticated prevention technology. That's rare and valuable. The professional recognition was gratifying, but what meant most was knowing we were helping others avoid what I had discovered in my own marriage. Every prevented crisis, every early intervention, every protected family represented a personal victory. The skills Mark had denigrated were now protecting countless others from similar devastation. During a particularly meaningful therapy session, Mark finally articulated the full impact of his underestimation. I was so convinced of my own superiority that I couldn't see what was right in front of me, he admitted. My need to dismiss your capabilities nearly destroyed us. Instead, it led you to create something extraordinary. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. His patronizing attitude toward my financial understanding had directly enabled the development of revolutionary protection systems. By assuming I couldn't comprehend his activities, he had given me the perfect opportunity to document and analyze addictive behavior patterns. Your case demonstrates how underestimation can become opportunity, Dr. Anderson noted during a joint session. The very dismissal that enabled the addiction also allowed for the development of sophisticated prevention methods. It's an extraordinary transformation of personal challenge into systemic solution. Looking back, I recognized that exposing Mark's addiction wasn't just about saving our retirement or our marriage. It was about using that experience to prevent others from facing similar destruction. The skills he had dismissed as unnecessary had become tools for protecting countless families from financial devastation. The systems we developed continued to evolve, becoming more sophisticated at recognizing and preventing destructive patterns. Each refinement, each improvement, each new application helped create better protection against financial self-destruction. The impact extended far beyond what I had initially imagined possible. Our investigation into Mark's gambling activities revealed connections to larger criminal networks that none of us had anticipated. The offshore platforms he had used weren't just gambling sites, they were sophisticated money laundering operations, using addiction as a tool for financial crime. The patterns we're seeing go far beyond individual addiction, Special Agent Wilson explained during a secure briefing. These platforms are deliberately designed to exploit gambling addiction as cover for illegal financial operations. Your husband unknowingly became part of an international criminal enterprise. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit had been monitoring these networks for months, but our behavioral analysis systems provided crucial new insights. The patterns we'd identified through tracking Mark's addiction helped expose how these criminal organizations operated. Your detection algorithms revealed something unexpected, Wilson continued, spreading out complex transaction diagrams. What looks like random gambling activity actually follows specific patterns. The addiction itself becomes a mechanism for laundering money through seemingly legitimate losses. The discovery added new dimensions to our prevention protocols. We weren't just protecting against individual addiction. We were now helping identify and disrupt criminal financial networks. Each pattern we documented, each behavioral indicator we tracked, provided valuable intelligence for law enforcement. The sophistication of these operations is remarkable, Maria Gonzalez, our head of security analysis, observed. They specifically target people with Mark's profile, successful professionals with access to significant funds, and a predisposition to gambling addiction. The platforms are designed to exploit both the addiction and the ego that often accompanies it. Our investigation revealed how these criminal networks operated. They would identify potential targets through their initial gambling activities, then gradually escalate the addiction while introducing opportunities for larger stakes games. The process was carefully engineered to maximize both the addiction and the financial flow. Look at how they manipulated the win-loss patterns, Maria explained, displaying detailed analytics. Early wins hook the target, followed by calculated losses that fuel the addiction. The timing, the amounts, the game types, everything is designed to create maximum dependency while moving maximum funds. Mark's case provided perfect documentation of their methods. His progression from casual gambling to desperate addiction followed their standard playbook exactly. The very records I had kept to track his destruction now helped expose the system that had enabled it. Your behavioral analysis opened up an entirely new avenue of investigation, Agent Wilson noted. We're not just looking at individual transactions anymore. We're seeing the psychological manipulation that drives the entire operation. Your husband's case helped us understand how these networks actually function. The criminal organizations had created sophisticated systems for identifying and exploiting potential targets. They monitored professional success indicators, social media patterns, and initial gambling behaviors to find people vulnerable to their methods. Mark's profile: successful consultant with high income and underlying insecurities, made him a perfect target. These aren't just random gambling sites, Maria explained during a team briefing. They're highly engineered psychological manipulation systems. Everything from the user interface to the reward patterns is designed to create and maintain addiction while facilitating money movement. Our prevention protocols expanded to include detection of these predatory patterns. The behavioral analysis that had helped identify Mark's addiction now helped protect others from being targeted by these criminal networks. Each potential victim we identified and protected represented both a personal and legal victory. Your systems are disrupting their operations significantly, Agent Wilson reported. By identifying and blocking addiction patterns early, you're cutting off their access to potential targets. The financial impact on these criminal networks is substantial. The discovery of criminal networks operating through the gambling sites created complex legal challenges. Mark's unwitting participation in money laundering operations raised questions about criminal liability and cooperation with federal investigations. Your husband's position is unique, Jennifer Hayes, our legal counsel, explained during a strategy session. While he was technically involved in illegal financial operations, his role as an addiction victim, rather than a willing participant, creates important legal distinctions. His cooperation could be valuable for prosecuting the actual criminal enterprises. The FBI wanted Mark's testimony about the gambling platform's operations. His detailed experience with their methods, combined with my comprehensive documentation of his activities, provided crucial evidence for building cases against these organizations. The records you kept are extraordinary, Agent Wilson noted. Reviewing my files, most addiction cases don't have this level of documentation. The combination of your financial expertise and his direct experience creates a powerful case against these operations. Mark struggled with the implications of becoming a federal witness. The professional reputation he had tried so desperately to protect would now be publicly connected to both gambling addiction and criminal investigations. His carefully constructed image of financial expertise faced complete destruction. This is part of your recovery, Dr. Anderson advised during an emergency session. Accepting responsibility isn't just about acknowledging addiction, it's about helping prevent others from falling into the same traps. Your testimony could help dismantle the systems that enabled your addiction. The legal team worked to structure Mark's cooperation in ways that balanced law enforcement needs with addiction. Recovery requirements. Each interview, each statement, each piece of testimony was carefully managed to maintain his psychological stability while providing valuable intelligence. We're setting new precedents here, Jennifer observed. The intersection of addiction, treatment, criminal investigation, and financial security creates unique legal challenges. Your case is helping establish frameworks for handling similar situations. My role became increasingly complex, balancing multiple responsibilities. As Mark's wife, I supported his recovery. As a financial security expert, I helped analyze the criminal networks. As a witness to his addiction, I provided crucial testimony about their methods of exploitation. Your position gives you unique insights, Agent Wilson said during a preparation session. You understand both the technical aspects of their operations and the psychological impact on their victims. That combination is invaluable for prosecution. The legal proceedings revealed how thoroughly these criminal organizations had engineered their platforms. Every aspect of the gambling sites was designed to maximize both addiction and money movement. The psychological manipulation was as sophisticated as the financial fraud. They created perfect traps, Maria explained, presenting analysis to federal prosecutors. The platforms identify vulnerable targets, exploit psychological weaknesses, and systematically escalate both addiction and financial losses. Its predatory behavior masked as entertainment. Our prevention systems gained new importance in light of these discoveries. We weren't just protecting against individual addiction. We were helping disrupt international criminal enterprises. Each blocked transaction, each early intervention, represented both personal salvation and criminal disruption. Your behavioral analysis systems have become crucial investigative tools, Agent Wilson noted. By identifying addiction patterns early, you're not just preventing personal tragedy, you're cutting off criminal revenue streams. The financial impact on these organizations is significant. The revelations about criminal networks operating through gambling platforms sent shockwaves through the financial industry. Major institutions scrambled to implement versions of our prevention protocols, recognizing that addiction-based money laundering could be affecting their operations. Your case has exposed a massive vulnerability in the financial system, Richard explained during an emergency board meeting. These criminal organizations have been using addiction as cover for money laundering on a scale we're just beginning to understand. Your prevention systems are suddenly the most important security innovation in the industry. Banks and investment firms across the country began adopting our behavioral analysis models. The patterns we'd identified through monitoring Mark's addiction became standard indicators for detecting potential criminal exploitation. Our security team found themselves consulting with institutions worldwide. The applications extend far beyond gambling, Maria reported. We're seeing similar patterns in other forms of addiction-driven financial crime. Shopping addiction, trading compulsion, cryptocurrency speculation, they're all being used as covers for money laundering. Our prevention protocols evolved rapidly to address these expanded threats. The behavioral analysis that had originally focused on gambling addiction now helped identify multiple forms of financial exploitation. Each new pattern we discovered improved the system's effectiveness. You've created something revolutionary, Dr. Chen observed during a strategy review. By understanding how addiction enables financial crime, you've developed protection systems that address both personal and criminal threats. It's changing how the entire industry approaches security. Mark's testimony proved invaluable in understanding how these criminal networks operated. His experience as both a victim and an unwitting participant helped expose their sophisticated manipulation techniques. The professional expertise he had once used to dismiss my capabilities now served to strengthen our prevention systems. The psychological aspects are crucial, he explained during a briefing with security analysts. They don't just exploit financial vulnerability, they specifically target professional ego and success identity. The entire system is designed to bypass normal risk assessment through psychological manipulation. Our team expanded rapidly as demand for our expertise grew. We added specialists in various forms of financial addiction, each bringing new insights into how criminal organizations exploit psychological vulnerabilities. The prevention systems became increasingly sophisticated at identifying potential threats. The integration of psychological analysis with financial security is groundbreaking, Maria noted. We're not just tracking transactions anymore. We're understanding and preventing the behaviors that enable financial crime. It's a completely new approach to protection. The impact extended beyond individual institutions. Regulatory agencies began incorporating our behavioral analysis models into their oversight protocols. Law enforcement organizations adopted our methods for investigating financial crimes. Government security teams implemented versions of our systems. Your work has implications for national security, Agent Wilson explained. These criminal networks don't just destroy individual lives, they compromise financial systems and fund illegal operations worldwide. Your prevention protocols are becoming crucial tools for maintaining economic stability. The professional recognition was significant, but what mattered most was knowing we were preventing others from experiencing what Mark and I had discovered. Every block transaction, every early intervention, every disrupted criminal operation represented both Personal salvation and systemic protection. 2 years after discovering Mark's gambling addiction, I sat in my expanded office at Blackstone, reviewing the latest impact reports from our prevention systems. The protocols we'd developed had blocked over $2 billion in potentially criminal transactions, protected thousands from addiction-driven losses, and helped dismantle several major money laundering operations. Your personal experience with addiction detection has transformed into something extraordinary, Richard commented during our quarterly review. You've created protection systems that operate at both individual and institutional levels. The impact goes far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. Mark's recovery progress continued to provide insights that helped refine our systems. Each stage of his rehabilitation revealed new patterns to monitor, additional indicators to track, better ways to prevent exploitation. His journey from victim to valuable consultant reflected the evolution of our prevention protocols. The psychological aspects of financial crime are finally being understood, Dr. Chen observed during a strategy session. Your integration of addiction analysis with security systems has created a new paradigm for protection. We're preventing exploitation by understanding the behaviors that enable it. Our marriage had found a new equilibrium, one based on actual capabilities rather than assumed authority. The financial discussions that had once consisted of Mark's condescending explanations now became collaborative analyses of system improvements. His experience as an addiction victim helped strengthen the very protocols that had exposed his behavior. I never imagined my biggest professional contribution would come from my greatest personal failure, he reflected during a team briefing. The expertise I used to hide my addiction now helps prevent others from falling into the same traps. It's a strange kind of redemption. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. His dismissal of my financial capabilities had directly enabled the development of revolutionary protection systems. By assuming I couldn't comprehend his activities, he had given me the perfect opportunity to document and analyze exploitation patterns that now helped safeguard entire institutions. Your case demonstrates how underestimation can become opportunity, Dr. Anderson noted during our final joint session. The very dismissal that enabled the addiction also allowed for the development of sophisticated prevention methods. You've transformed personal crisis into systemic solution. Looking back, I recognize that exposing Mark's addiction wasn't just about saving our retirement or our marriage. It was about using that experience to prevent others from facing similar destruction. The skills he had dismissed as unnecessary had become tools for protecting countless families and institutions from financial devastation. The systems we developed continued to evolve, becoming more sophisticated at recognizing and preventing destructive patterns. Each refinement, each improvement, each new application helped create better protection against both personal addiction and criminal exploitation. The impact extended far beyond what I had initially imagined possible. You've created a legacy of protection, Richard observed during a board presentation. What began as personal discovery has evolved into institutional safeguards that will continue preventing exploitation long into the future. That's an extraordinary achievement. Our experience with gambling addiction and financial crime prevention began transforming how institutions approached education and training. Major universities incorporated our case studies into their curricula, using the detailed documentation of Mark's addiction and recovery to teach future financial professionals about both personal and systemic vulnerabilities. Your story provides perfect teaching examples, Professor Sarah Matthews explained during a guest lecture at Harvard Business School. The progression from successful professional to addiction victim, the sophisticated concealment methods, the criminal exploitation patterns. It demonstrates how financial destruction typically develops. We developed comprehensive training programs for financial institutions, combining technical security measures with psychological insight. The behavioral patterns we'd identified through tracking Mark's addiction became standard indicators that security professionals learned to recognize and address. The educational impact extends beyond finance, Dr. Chen noted during a curriculum review. Psychology programs are studying your case to understand how professional success can mask addiction vulnerability. Law enforcement academies use it to train investigators in detecting sophisticated financial crimes. Mark's participation in these educational efforts proved surprisingly valuable. His first-hand experience with both addiction and criminal exploitation helped others understand how seemingly successful professionals could become unwitting participants in financial crimes. The psychological aspects are crucial for prevention, he explained during a training session. These systems don't just exploit financial vulnerability, they specifically target professional ego and success identity. Understanding that psychology is essential for effective protection. Our security team developed simulation programs that allowed trainees to experience how addiction-driven financial crimes typically evolve. Using anonymized data from real cases, including elements from Mark's experience, we created scenarios that helped professionals recognize warning signs early. The practical training is revolutionary, Maria reported. Instead of just learning about fraud indicators, people experience how psychological manipulation and financial deception work together. It creates much more effective prevention awareness. Universities began offering specialized courses studying the intersection of addiction, professional success, and financial crime. The detailed psychological profile developed through documenting Mark's case provided unique insights into how seemingly sophisticated individuals could become victims of systematic exploitation. Your case materials are invaluable for teaching, Professor Matthews observed. The progression from simple gambling to complex financial fraud, the sophisticated concealment methods, the criminal network connections. It shows students how these situations typically develop. Financial institutions implemented mandatory training programs based on our prevention protocols. Every employee involved in transaction monitoring or security oversight learned to recognize the behavioral patterns we'd identified. The skills I had developed tracking Mark's addiction became standard professional knowledge. The educational impact goes beyond individual awareness, Richard noted during a program review. We're creating systemic understanding of how financial exploitation operates. That knowledge helps protect both institutions and individuals from sophisticated criminal operations. Most significantly, our training programs helped other professionals recognize potential addiction issues before they became catastrophic. The early warning signs we'd identified through monitoring Mark's behavior became standard indicators that financial advisors learned to watch for. The exposure of criminal networks operating through gambling platforms triggered unprecedented regulatory attention. Federal agencies began implementing new oversight requirements based on our prevention protocols, recognizing that traditional financial monitoring had failed to detect these sophisticated exploitation systems. Your behavioral analysis models are revolutionizing how we approach financial regulation, explained Thomas Richardson, Senior Director at the SEC. We're no longer just looking at transaction patterns. We're identifying and preventing the psychological manipulation that enables financial crimes. Our team worked closely with regulatory agencies to develop new compliance standards. The security systems we'd created for tracking addiction-driven behavior became the foundation for broader protection requirements. Financial institutions worldwide had to implement versions of our prevention protocols. The regulatory impact is extraordinary, Jennifer observed during a compliance review. Your personal experience with detecting gambling addiction has transformed into international standards for financial security. Every major institution now has to maintain behavioral monitoring systems. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit incorporated our methods into their investigation procedures. The patterns we'd identified through monitoring Mark's addiction helped create new frameworks for detecting and disrupting criminal financial operations. Your prevention systems changed how we approach these cases, Agent Wilson explained. Instead of chasing individual transactions, we can identify and disrupt the behavioral patterns that enable entire criminal networks. It's much more effective for prevention. Mark's testimony about how criminal organizations exploited psychological vulnerabilities helped shape new protective regulations. His experience as both a victim and an unwitting participant provided crucial insights into how these systems operated. The regulatory requirements now address both technical and psychological aspects, Thomas noted. Financial institutions must monitor not just for suspicious transactions, but for behavioral patterns that might indicate exploitation. It's a completely new approach to protection. Our prevention protocols became mandatory elements of financial security systems. Banks, investment firms, and pension funds had to implement behavioral analysis capabilities that could identify potential addiction-driven activities before they became catastrophic. The regulatory framework you've helped create is unprecedented, Jennifer said during an implementation review. We're not just protecting against financial crimes, we're preventing the psychological exploitation that enables them. That's a fundamental shift in financial security. The impact extended beyond traditional financial institutions. Online payment systems, cryptocurrency exchanges, and digital trading platforms all had to incorporate versions of our behavioral monitoring. The criminal network's use of technology for exploitation led to new requirements for digital financial services. Your systems are becoming the global standard, Maria reported. Every major financial platform has to implement behavioral analysis capabilities. The prevention protocols you developed are now basic requirements for operation. Most significantly, the regulatory changes helped create early warning systems that could identify potential victims before they suffered significant losses. The patterns we'd documented through Mark's case became standard indicators that institutions were required to monitor and address. The sophisticated technology we'd developed for tracking addiction-driven behavior sparked a wave of innovation in financial security systems. Our behavioral analysis algorithms became the foundation for new approaches to protecting both individuals and institutions from exploitation. Your prevention protocols have created an entirely new field of financial technology, Maria explained during a development review. We're not just monitoring transactions anymore. We're using artificial intelligence to understand and prevent destructive behavioral patterns. Our security team expanded rapidly, adding specialists in machine learning and psychological modeling. The systems we'd created for tracking gambling addiction evolved into comprehensive protection platforms that could identify multiple forms of financial exploitation. The technical innovation is remarkable, observed Dr. Chen during a system analysis. You've essentially created artificial intelligence that can recognize psychological manipulation attempts. The prevention capabilities go far beyond what traditional security systems could achieve. The technology evolved to incorporate real-time behavioral analysis. Every transaction, every account access, every financial decision could be instantly evaluated for potential risk patterns. The sophistication that had helped track Mark's addiction now protected millions of users worldwide. Your systems are setting new standards for financial security, Richard noted during a technical review. The integration of psychological understanding with artificial intelligence creates protection capabilities that were previously impossible. It's transforming how we approach financial safety. Major technology companies began implementing versions of our behavioral analysis models. The patterns we'd identified through monitoring addiction became standard indicators that security systems learned to recognize and address. Our prevention protocols influenced the development of new financial platforms. The technical applications extend beyond financial services, Maria reported. Social media companies are using modified versions to identify addiction-driven behavior patterns. E-commerce platforms have implemented similar systems to prevent exploitative practices. Most significantly, our technology helped create early warning systems that could identify potential victims before they suffered significant losses. The behavioral patterns we documented through Mark's case became standard indicators that artificial intelligence learned to monitor. The prevention capabilities are extraordinary, commented James Chen, Chief Technology Officer at a major security firm. Your systems can recognize exploitation attempts before traditional security measures would detect anything wrong. It's proactive protection rather than reactive response. The technical innovation wasn't limited to detection capabilities. We developed sophisticated intervention systems that could automatically implement protective measures when risk patterns appeared. The technology that had helped stop Mark's gambling now prevented countless others from falling into similar traps. "Your artificial intelligence models are revolutionary," Maria observed. "They don't just identify problems, they understand how exploitation typically develops and can prevent it from progressing. That's unprecedented in financial security." The integration of psychological understanding with artificial intelligence created protection systems far more effective than traditional security measures. By recognizing behavioral patterns that indicated potential exploitation, our technology could prevent problems before they became disasters. 3 years after implementing our prevention protocols, the global impact of our work became clear. Financial institutions worldwide had adopted versions of our behavioral analysis systems, creating an international network of protection against addiction-driven exploitation. "Your prevention methods have transformed financial security globally," Richard explained during an international conference. "What began as a response to personal gambling addiction has evolved into worldwide standards for protecting against financial exploitation. The impact is beyond anything we could have imagined." Our team regularly consulted with financial organizations across different countries, helping implement customized versions of our prevention systems. The behavioral patterns we'd identified through monitoring Mark's addiction proved relevant across cultural and national boundaries. "The psychological aspects of financial exploitation are remarkably consistent," Dr. Chen observed during a global implementation review. "While specific methods might vary, the basic patterns of addiction and manipulation remain similar worldwide. Your prevention protocols work effectively across different contexts. International law enforcement agencies incorporated our methods into their investigation procedures. The patterns we documented helped create new frameworks for detecting and disrupting criminal financial operations globally. Your systems have revolutionized how we approach international financial crime," Agent Wilson noted during a multinational task force meeting. "We can now identify and prevent exploitation patterns that cross borders and jurisdictions. It's dramatically more effective than traditional methods." The impact extended beyond financial institutions to affect international regulatory standards. Our prevention protocols became part of global security requirements, with financial organizations worldwide required to implement behavioral monitoring systems. "The regulatory changes you've inspired are unprecedented," Jennifer said during an international compliance review. "Every major financial institution worldwide now has to maintain some version of your prevention systems. It's become the global standard for financial security." Most significantly, our work helped create international cooperation networks for preventing financial exploitation. Organizations worldwide shared data and insights through our systems, improving the overall effectiveness of prevention efforts. "The collaborative impact is extraordinary," Maria reported. "When one institution identifies new exploitation patterns, that information helps protect users worldwide. We've created a global safety net against financial predation." Mark's experience became a valuable case study for international prevention efforts. His progression from successful professional to addiction victim helped organizations worldwide understand how sophisticated exploitation typically develops. "Your personal story has global resonance," Dr. Chen noted. "The patterns you documented through Mark's case help people everywhere recognize and prevent similar situations. It's created universal understanding of how financial exploitation operates." The worldwide adoption of our prevention protocols created protection far beyond what I had initially imagined possible. The skills I had developed tracking one person's addiction now helped safeguard millions of people across the globe from similar exploitation. The investigation into the gambling platforms revealed a network far more extensive than we'd initially suspected. Maria's team uncovered connections between the offshore sites and major financial institutions, suggesting sophisticated money laundering operations disguised as legitimate business. These aren't isolated gambling operations, Maria explained, spreading complex diagrams across my conference table. We're looking at an interconnected system of financial manipulation. The addiction aspect is just the visible surface of a much larger criminal enterprise. Through our enhanced monitoring systems, we traced transaction patterns that showed how the criminal networks operated. They would identify potential targets through initial gambling activities, then gradually escalate both the addiction and the financial involvement. Each step was carefully calculated to maximize both psychological dependency and money movement. Look at how they structured Mark's progression, Maria pointed out, displaying detailed analytics. His early wins weren't random. They were carefully timed to create specific behavioral patterns. Every aspect of his gambling experience was engineered to maintain increasing involvement. The sophistication of their manipulation became clear as we analyzed thousands of similar cases. The criminal organizations had created detailed profiles of potential targets, focusing particularly on successful professionals with access to substantial funds and underlying psychological vulnerabilities. Your husband's case helped us understand their methodology, Agent Wilson noted during an emergency briefing. The psychological profiling, the progressive manipulation, the financial extraction, it's all precisely designed to exploit specific personality types. Our prevention protocols expanded rapidly to address these new discoveries. The behavioral analysis that had initially focused on individual addiction now helped identify entire networks of criminal activity. Each pattern we documented strengthened our ability to protect potential victims. The technical implications are staggering, Maria observed. We're not just preventing individual losses anymore. We're disrupting major criminal enterprises. Every transaction we block, every addiction we prevent, impacts their entire operation. The investigation revealed how these networks used legitimate financial systems to process their illegal gains. Major banks, investment firms, and payment processors had been unknowingly facilitating criminal transactions disguised as normal gambling activity. This explains why traditional security measures failed, Richard commented during a review session. The transactions looked legitimate because they were processed through established financial channels. Only behavioral analysis could reveal the underlying criminal pattern. As we expanded our investigation, more connections emerged. The gambling platforms linked to broader networks of financial crime, including fraud schemes, money laundering operations, and illegal trading activities. Each discovery helped strengthen our prevention capabilities. These organizations created perfect exploitation systems, Dr. Chen explained during analysis. They combined psychological manipulation with sophisticated financial engineering. Understanding. This integration is crucial for effective prevention. The scope of the criminal enterprise was shocking. Thousands of victims worldwide, billions in laundered funds, countless lives destroyed through carefully engineered addiction. The woman Mark had dismissed as financially naive was now helping dismantle international criminal networks. Mark's journey through recovery provided invaluable insights for developing better prevention and treatment protocols. His experience as both a victim and an unwitting participant in criminal operations helped create more effective approaches to addiction intervention. Your husband's case is unique, Dr. Anderson explained during a strategy session. Most addiction recovery programs don't have access to this level of detailed documentation. The combination of psychological progression and financial data creates unprecedented learning opportunities. The recovery process revealed complex patterns of behavior that had enabled both the addiction and the criminal exploitation. Each therapy session uncovered new insights into how successful professionals could become vulnerable to sophisticated manipulation. The psychological aspects are fascinating, Dr. Chen noted while reviewing Mark's progress. His professional success actually made him more susceptible to exploitation. The same traits that drove his career, confidence, risk tolerance, competitive nature, became vulnerabilities when targeted by these criminal systems. We developed comprehensive monitoring protocols for Mark's rehabilitation, combining financial oversight with psychological support. Every transaction, no matter how small, was analyzed for potential risk patterns. The systems that had documented his addiction now guided his recovery. The integrated approach is revolutionary, Dr. Anderson observed. We're not just treating the addiction, we're addressing the underlying psychological patterns that made him vulnerable. The financial monitoring provides immediate feedback on behavioral changes. Mark's participation in development of these protocols proved surprisingly valuable. His insights into how the gambling platforms had exploited his professional identity helped create better protection systems for others in similar positions. They knew exactly how to target someone like me, he explained during a team briefing. The initial wins, the VIP treatment, the sophisticated financial language, everything was designed to appeal to professional ego while hiding the manipulation. Our prevention systems evolved to incorporate these insights. The behavioral analysis that had tracked Mark's addiction expanded to identify similar vulnerability patterns in others. Each refinement helped protect more potential victims from exploitation. The recovery monitoring provides crucial data, Maria reported. We can see how intervention efforts affect behavior patterns in real time. This immediate feedback helps improve both prevention and treatment protocols. Most significantly, Mark's recovery process helped develop better understanding of how professional success could mask addiction vulnerability. The detailed documentation of his progression from confident executive to desperate gambler provided valuable insights for identifying similar risks. Your case demonstrates key patterns, Dr. Chen explained during a review. The intersection of professional achievement, psychological vulnerability, and criminal exploitation creates specific behavioral signatures. Understanding these patterns is crucial for effective prevention. The recovery protocols we developed became models for treating similar cases. The combination of financial monitoring and psychological support proved more effective than traditional approaches to addiction treatment. Our prevention systems underwent rapid evolution as we incorporated new insights from both addiction treatment and criminal investigation. The technology that had initially focused on tracking gambling behavior expanded into sophisticated platforms for identifying multiple forms of financial exploitation. The technical capabilities are extraordinary, Maria explained during a system review. We're not just monitoring transactions anymore. We're analyzing complex behavioral patterns in real time. The artificial intelligence can now recognize exploitation attempts before traditional security measures would detect anything wrong. Each refinement of our protocols improved their effectiveness at preventing financial destruction. The behavioral analysis algorithms learned from every case they processed, becoming increasingly accurate at identifying potential risks before they became catastrophic. Your systems have created a new paradigm for financial security, Richard observed. The integration of psychological understanding with artificial intelligence produces protection capabilities that were previously impossible. It's transforming how we approach financial safety. The technology evolved to incorporate multiple layers of analysis: transaction patterns, behavioral indicators, psychological profiles, all contributed to comprehensive risk assessment. The sophistication that had helped track Mark's addiction now protected millions of users worldwide. Look at how the system adapts, Maria demonstrated, displaying real-time analytics. When it detects potential risk patterns, it doesn't just block transactions. It analyzes the entire context of financial behavior. This holistic approach makes it much more effective at preventing exploitation. Major financial institutions implemented versions of our prevention protocols, creating an interconnected network of protection. The patterns we'd identified through monitoring addiction became standard indicators that security systems learned to recognize and address. The technical applications extend beyond gambling, Dr. Chen noted. We're seeing similar behavioral patterns in other forms of financial exploitation. The prevention capabilities work effectively across different types of addictive or compulsive financial behavior. Most significantly, our technology helped create early warning systems that could identify potential victims before they suffered significant losses. The behavioral patterns we documented through Mark's case became standard indicators that artificial intelligence learned to monitor. The prevention capabilities are revolutionary. James Chen, Chief Technology Officer at a major security firm, commented. Your systems can recognize exploitation attempts before any money is lost. It's proactive protection rather than reactive response. The technical innovation wasn't limited to detection capabilities. We developed sophisticated intervention systems that could automatically implement protective measures when risk patterns appeared. The technology that had helped stop Mark's gambling now prevented countless others from falling into similar traps. These systems are changing the future of financial security, Maria observed. We're not just preventing losses, we're protecting people from psychological exploitation. That's an entirely new level of financial safety. Our team continued refining and expanding the technology, incorporating new insights from both addiction treatment and criminal investigation. Each improvement helped create better protection against financial exploitation. 2 years into Mark's recovery, our marriage underwent profound transformation. The dynamics that had enabled his addiction, his financial control, my assumed ignorance, our unbalanced power structure, were completely reversed. Every aspect of our relationship had to be rebuilt on new foundations. This level of role reversal is challenging, Dr. Anderson noted during a therapy session. Moving from a relationship built on financial dominance to one requiring complete transparency and accountability takes extraordinary adjustment. Many couples don't survive this transition. The daily reality of our new situation created constant reminders of how thoroughly our lives had changed. Mark's every financial decision required approval and monitoring. The man who had once dismissed my capabilities now depended entirely on my oversight for basic monetary access. The psychological adjustment is significant, Dr. Chen observed during a joint consultation. Your husband is learning to accept not just your authority, but your superior expertise. That's a fundamental shift in self-perception that affects every aspect of your relationship. Our home life developed new patterns centered around financial transparency. Evening discussions that had once consisted of Mark's condescending explanations became careful reviews of monitored transactions. Each purchase was documented, each expense justified, each decision examined for potential risk. The comprehensive nature of your oversight system is remarkable, Dr. Anderson commented. It's not just tracking transactions, it's analyzing patterns of behavior, emotional triggers, stress indicators. You've created a complete financial rehabilitation environment. Mark's professional identity required complete reconstruction. The confident financial expert who had patronizingly explained basic concepts to me now sought my guidance on fundamental money management. His entire self-image underwent necessary revision. Your position at Blackstone isn't just about monitoring recovery, Dr. Anderson explained to Mark. Your wife has become a recognized authority on financial addiction prevention. The systems she developed using your case as a model are now industry standards. Most challenging was Mark's acceptance of his new role in our financial life. The man who had controlled every monetary decision now had to justify routine purchases. His professional confidence, once used to dismiss my capabilities, transformed into humble recognition of his dependencies. I never realized how much of my identity was built around financial control, he admitted during therapy. Having to acknowledge not just my addiction, but your expertise. It's been the hardest part of recovery. Through this transformation, we discovered new ways of relating to each other. The pretense of his superiority, the fiction of my naivety, the unbalanced power dynamic that had characterized our marriage, all gave way to more authentic interaction based on genuine capabilities. Your case demonstrates remarkable resilience, Dr. Anderson observed. You've managed to transform a destructive relationship pattern into something more balanced and honest. That's rare in addiction recovery situations. As Mark's recovery progressed, we found unexpected ways to integrate his experience into our prevention work. His insights as both a victim and a recovering addict proved valuable for improving our security systems and treatment protocols. Your husband offers unique perspective, Maria noted during a system review. He understands both the psychology of addiction and the sophisticated financial mechanisms these platforms use. That combination helps us identify vulnerabilities we might otherwise miss. We developed specialized training programs that incorporated Mark's experience. His progression from successful professional to desperate gambler provided perfect case studies for teaching others about addiction risks and prevention strategies. The personal testimony is powerful, Dr. Chen observed during a training session. When a former executive explains how easily these systems can exploit professional success, people pay attention. It makes the threat real in ways abstract warnings never could. Mark's contributions to our prevention work helped restore his sense of purpose. Instead of hiding his addiction history, he used it to help protect others from similar exploitation. The expertise he had once used to conceal his gambling now served to prevent others' destruction. These platforms target people exactly like I was, he explained during a security briefing. Successful professionals with access to funds and enough financial knowledge to think we can't be fooled. The manipulation is precisely designed for our psychological profile. Our team integrated his insights into increasingly sophisticated prevention protocols. The behavioral patterns he identified helped create better early warning systems. Each refinement made our protection more effective at identifying potential victims before significant losses occurred. Your collaborative approach is revolutionary, Richard commented during a review. Combining recovered addict insight with technical expertise creates much more effective prevention systems. You're addressing both the psychological and practical aspects of exploitation. Most significant was how this work helped transform our professional relationship. The dynamics that had once enabled addiction, his assumed superiority, my hidden expertise, evolved into genuine collaboration based on our respective strengths. This kind of professional integration is rare, Dr. Anderson noted. Most couples affected by addiction struggle to find healthy ways to work together. You've managed to transform a destructive pattern into productive partnership. Mark's understanding of how gambling platforms exploited professional identity helped strengthen our prevention protocols. His experience revealed subtle manipulation techniques that might have escaped purely technical analysis. The targeting is incredibly sophisticated, he explained during development meetings. They don't just exploit gambling impulses, they specifically appeal to professional ego and success identity. Understanding that psychology is crucial for effective prevention. Through this integration, we created more comprehensive protection systems that addressed both technical and psychological aspects of addiction. The combination of his experience and my expertise produced better safeguards than either could have developed alone. The success of our gambling prevention protocols led to rapid expansion into other areas of financial protection. Banks and investment firms began implementing versions of our behavioral analysis systems to identify various forms of destructive financial behavior. Your models have applications we hadn't considered, Richard explained during an implementation review. Credit card companies are using modified versions to detect addiction-driven spending. Investment firms are adapting the protocols to identify compulsive trading patterns. You've created a whole new approach to financial protection. Our team expanded to address these new applications, adding specialists in various forms of financial addiction. Each new area required careful adaptation of our core prevention protocols to address specific behavioral patterns and exploitation methods. The underlying psychology is remarkably consistent, Dr. Chen observed. Whether it's gambling, day trading, or compulsive spending, the progression from normal financial behavior to addiction follows similar patterns. Your prevention systems can adapt to recognize these variations. The technology evolved to incorporate multiple types of behavioral analysis. Our artificial intelligence systems learn to identify subtle indicators of potential problems across different forms of financial activity. Each new application helped refine the overall effectiveness of our prevention protocols. Look at how the patterns interconnect, Maria demonstrated, displaying complex analytics. The same psychological vulnerabilities that gambling platforms exploit can make someone susceptible to high-risk trading or excessive spending. Understanding these connections helps prevent multiple forms of financial destruction. Mark's experience proved valuable in understanding these broader applications. His insights into how addiction had affected his financial decision-making helped identify similar patterns in other destructive behaviors. The psychological progression is similar, he explained during a development meeting. It starts with small decisions that seem reasonable, escalates through increasingly risky behavior, and eventually becomes completely compulsive. Understanding that pattern is crucial for prevention. Our prevention systems expanded to create comprehensive financial protection networks. Banks, investment firms, and credit card companies implemented interconnected versions of our protocols, creating multiple layers of security against destructive behavior. The collaborative impact is extraordinary, Richard noted. When one institution identifies new risk patterns, that information helps protect users across the entire network. You've created a financial safety net that keeps getting stronger. The expansion required constant refinement of our behavioral analysis models. Each new application revealed additional patterns to monitor, different indicators to track, better ways to prevent exploitation. The systems became increasingly sophisticated at identifying potential problems before they became crises. Your prevention protocols are setting new standards, Maria reported. Every major financial institution wants to implement some version of these protections. The impact extends far beyond what we initially imagined possible. Our experience with addiction prevention began transforming how financial institutions approached employee training and client education. Major banks and investment firms incorporated our case studies into their professional development programs, using the detailed documentation of Mark's progression to help others understand vulnerability patterns. Your story provides perfect teaching examples, Jennifer explained during a training development session. The combination of professional success, hidden addiction, and sophisticated concealment demonstrates how financial destruction typically develops. It helps people recognize warning signs they might otherwise miss. We developed comprehensive educational programs that combined technical security measures with psychological insight. The behavioral patterns we'd identified through tracking. Mark's addiction became standard indicators that financial professionals learned to recognize and address. The educational impact extends beyond finance, Dr. Chen noted during a curriculum review. Psychology programs are studying your case to understand how professional success can mask addiction vulnerability. Law enforcement academies use it to train investigators in detecting sophisticated financial crimes. Mark's participation in these educational efforts proved surprisingly valuable. His first-hand experience with both addiction and criminal exploitation helped others understand how seemingly successful professionals could become unwitting participants in destructive patterns. The psychological aspects are crucial for prevention, he explained during a training session. These systems don't just exploit financial vulnerability. They specifically target professional ego and success identity. Understanding that psychology is essential for effective protection. Our security team developed simulation programs that allowed trainees to experience how addiction-driven financial destruction typically evolves. Using anonymized data from real cases, including elements from Mark's experience, we created scenarios that helped professionals recognize warning signs early. The practical training is revolutionary, Maria reported. Instead of just learning about fraud indicators, people experience how psychological manipulation and financial deception work together. It creates much more effective prevention awareness. Universities began offering specialized courses studying the intersection of addiction, professional success, and financial destruction. The detailed psychological profile developed through documenting Mark's case provided unique insights into how seemingly sophisticated individuals could become victims. Your case materials are invaluable for teaching, Professor Matthews observed during a guest lecture. The progression from simple gambling to complex financial fraud, the sophisticated concealment methods, the criminal network connections, it shows students how these situations typically develop. Financial institutions implemented mandatory training programs based on our prevention protocols. Every employee involved in transaction monitoring or security oversight learned to recognize the behavioral patterns we'd identified. The skills I had developed tracking Mark's addiction became standard professional knowledge. The educational impact goes beyond individual awareness, Richard noted. We're creating systemic understanding of how financial exploitation operates. That knowledge helps protect both institutions and individuals from sophisticated criminal operations. 3 years into Mark's recovery, we both recognized how profoundly our experience had transformed us, both individually and as a couple. The crisis that could have destroyed our marriage had instead forced us to confront and change destructive patterns we might otherwise have never addressed. Your case demonstrates remarkable evolution, Dr. Anderson observed during a follow-up session. Most couples affected by addiction either separate or maintain unhealthy dynamics. You've managed to transform crisis into opportunity for genuine growth. The most significant change was in our professional relationship. Mark's dismissal of my financial capabilities had been replaced by genuine respect for my expertise. The woman he had once patronizingly explained basic concepts to was now internationally recognized for developing revolutionary protection systems. I never imagined my biggest professional impact would come through admitting complete failure, Mark reflected during a team meeting. Using my addiction experience to help prevent others' destruction, it's a strange kind of redemption, Taos. Own growth was equally profound. The skills I had hidden to maintain marital harmony now formed the foundation of groundbreaking financial security innovations. The expertise Mark had dismissed had evolved into capabilities that protected countless others from similar exploitation. Your personal journey is as remarkable as your professional achievements, Dr. Chen noted. You've transformed from someone hiding their capabilities to a recognized authority in financial protection. That psychological evolution is as significant as the technical innovations you've developed. Our marriage developed new patterns based on authentic interaction rather than assumed roles. The financial discussions that had once consisted of Mark's condescending explanations became genuine exchanges of knowledge and insight. Each of us contributed unique perspectives to our shared work. This kind of balanced collaboration is rare, Dr. Anderson commented. You've managed to replace hierarchical dynamics with genuine partnership. That's extraordinary progress, especially considering where you started. The integration of our professional capabilities produced better results than either could have achieved alone. Mark's experience with addiction psychology complemented my technical expertise in ways that strengthened our prevention systems. Our personal growth enabled professional innovation. Your combined perspective is powerful, Richard observed during a review. The marriage of technical sophistication with deep understanding of addiction psychology creates much more effective protection. You've turned personal crisis into systemic solution. Most significantly, we discovered how to use our experience to help others facing similar challenges. The painful journey through addiction and recovery became valuable insight for preventing others' destruction. Our personal growth enabled broader positive impact. 4 years after implementing our prevention protocols, the international impact of our work became increasingly evident. Financial institutions worldwide had adopted versions of our behavioral analysis systems, creating a global network of protection against addiction-driven exploitation. Your prevention methods have transformed financial security internationally, Richard explained during a major conference in London. What began as a response to personal gambling addiction has evolved into worldwide standards for protecting against financial exploitation. The scope is beyond anything we could have imagined. Our team regularly consulted with financial organizations across multiple continents, helping implement customized versions of our prevention systems. The behavioral patterns we'd identified through monitoring Mark's addiction proved remarkably consistent across cultural and national boundaries. The psychological aspects of financial exploitation show universal patterns, Dr. Chen observed during a global implementation review. While specific methods might vary by region, the basic progression of addiction and manipulation remains similar worldwide. Your prevention protocols work effectively across different contexts. International law enforcement agencies incorporated our methods into their investigation procedures. The patterns we documented helped create new frameworks for detecting and disrupting criminal financial operations at a global scale. Interpol and other international organizations adopted versions of our protocols. Your systems have revolutionized how we approach transnational financial crime, Agent Wilson noted during a multinational task force meeting. We can now identify and prevent exploitation patterns that cross borders and jurisdictions. It's dramatically more effective than traditional methods. The impact extended beyond financial institutions to influence international regulatory standards. Our prevention protocols became part of global security requirements, with financial organizations worldwide required to implement behavioral monitoring systems. The regulatory changes you've inspired are unprecedented, Jennifer said during an international compliance review. Every major financial institution worldwide now has to maintain some version of your prevention systems. It's become the global standard for financial security. Mark's experience became a valuable case study for international prevention efforts. His progression from successful professional to addiction victim helped organizations worldwide understand how sophisticated exploitation typically develops. The detailed documentation of his case provided crucial insights for global protection efforts. Your personal story has universal relevance, Dr. Chen noted during an international conference. The patterns you documented through Mark's case help people everywhere recognize and prevent similar situations. It's created worldwide understanding of how financial exploitation operates. Most significantly, our work helped establish international cooperation networks for preventing financial exploitation. Organizations worldwide shared data and insights through our systems, improving the overall effectiveness of prevention efforts. Each new pattern identified in one region helped protect users globally. The collaborative impact is extraordinary, Maria reported during a global systems review. When one institution identifies new exploitation patterns, that information helps protect users worldwide. We've created a global safety net against financial predation. The worldwide adoption of our prevention protocols created protection far beyond what I had initially imagined possible. The skills I had developed tracking one person's addiction now helped safeguard millions of people across the globe from similar exploitation. 5 years after implementing our initial prevention protocols, the financial industry had undergone fundamental transformation. What began as specific measures against gambling addiction had evolved into comprehensive protection systems that changed how institutions approached security and client protection. Your innovations have created entirely new standards for financial safety, Richard explained during an industry summit. Banks and investment firms no longer think about security just in terms of fraud prevention. They now consider psychological vulnerability and behavioral patterns as crucial protection factors. Major financial institutions restructured their security departments to incorporate behavioral analysis teams. The expertise I had developed tracking Mark's addiction became a required skill set for financial security professionals. Every major bank now maintained specialists in addiction prevention and psychological protection. The organizational changes are remarkable, Maria observed during an implementation review. Security teams that once focused solely on transaction monitoring now include psychologists, addiction specialists, and behavioral analysts. You've fundamentally changed how financial protection operates. Investment firms implemented sophisticated versions of our prevention protocols, adapting them to identify various forms of destructive trading behavior. The patterns we documented through gambling addiction helped protect against multiple types of financial self-destruction. The applications extend far beyond the original scope, Dr. Chen noted. Day trading addiction, compulsive investments, high-risk speculation. Your systems help prevent various forms of financially destructive behavior. The psychological insights from gambling addiction translate effectively to other areas. Credit. Card companies developed specialized monitoring based on our behavioral analysis models. Their systems could now identify potential addiction-driven spending before it created catastrophic damage. The early warning capabilities helped prevent countless personal financial disasters. Your prevention methods have transformed consumer protection, Jennifer explained during a regulatory review. Financial institutions now have both the capability and the responsibility to identify and prevent destructive behavioral patterns. It's created a new standard of care in financial services. The insurance industry incorporated versions of our protocols into their risk assessment procedures. The behavioral patterns we'd identified helped them evaluate potential clients and develop more effective protection policies. Our work influenced how entire industries approached financial risk. The impact on underwriting practices is significant, Richard noted. Insurance companies now consider behavioral patterns and psychological factors when assessing financial risk. Your prevention systems have changed fundamental industry practices. Most significantly, our innovations led to the development of new financial products specifically designed to protect vulnerable individuals. Banks created accounts with built-in behavioral monitoring and automatic intervention protocols. Investment firms offered managed services that included addiction prevention features. You've created a new category of financial services, Maria reported. Products that combine traditional banking or investment features with sophisticated behavioral protection. It's changing how institutions approach client safety. The industry evolution wasn't limited to technical changes. Financial institutions developed new ethical frameworks incorporating psychological protection as a fundamental responsibility. The dismissive attitude that had enabled Mark's addiction was replaced by systematic concern for client vulnerability. Our investigation into the gambling platforms revealed connections to sophisticated criminal networks that exceeded our initial understanding. The offshore sites weren't just enabling addiction, they were part of elaborate money laundering, operations using psychological exploitation as cover for financial crime. These aren't isolated gambling operations, Agent Wilson explained during an emergency briefing. We're looking at coordinated criminal enterprises that systematically identify, exploit, and profit from vulnerable individuals. The addiction aspect is just their entry point into much larger financial schemes. The FBI's analysis of our data exposed how these networks operated. They would target successful professionals with specific psychological profiles, using sophisticated algorithms to identify potential victims. Mark's case provided perfect documentation of their methodology. Look at how precisely they engineered his progression, Maria demonstrated, displaying detailed analytics. The early wins, the VIP treatment, the gradual escalation, everything was carefully calculated to maximize both psychological dependency and financial extraction. Nothing was random. Our prevention systems helped uncover patterns that revealed the true scope of these operations. The behavioral analysis that had tracked individual addiction now exposed entire networks of criminal activity. Each new case we prevented helped map their methodology more clearly. Your protocols have become crucial investigative tools, Agent Wilson noted. We're not just stopping individual losses. We're documenting how these criminal enterprises operate. The evidence you're gathering is helping dismantle entire networks. The investigation revealed how these organizations used legitimate financial systems to process their illegal gains. Major banks and investment firms had unknowingly facilitated criminal transactions disguised as normal gambling activity. Our behavioral analysis helped expose these hidden patterns. This explains why traditional security measures failed, Richard observed during a review session. The transactions looked legitimate because they were processed through established channels. Only behavioral analysis could reveal the underlying criminal patterns. The scope of the criminal enterprise was staggering. Thousands of victims worldwide, billions in laundered funds, countless lives destroyed through carefully engineered addiction. The woman Mark had dismissed as financially naive was now helping expose international criminal networks. These organizations created perfect exploitation systems, Dr. Chen explained during analysis. They combined psychological manipulation with sophisticated financial engineering. Understanding this integration is crucial for prevention. Our team worked closely with international law enforcement to document and disrupt these networks. The behavioral patterns we'd identified helped create new frameworks for detecting and preventing organized financial crime. Your prevention systems are changing how we approach these investigations, Agent Wilson commented. Instead of chasing individual transactions, we can identify and disrupt the behavioral patterns that enable entire criminal networks. It's much more effective for prevention. The criminal organizations had developed sophisticated methods for identifying and exploiting potential targets. They monitored professional success indicators, social media patterns, and initial gambling behaviors to find people vulnerable to their methods. Mark's profile, successful consultant with high income and underlying insecurities, made him a perfect target. The detailed documentation of Mark's addiction provided unprecedented insights into the psychology of financial exploitation. His progression from successful professional to desperate gambler revealed patterns that helped us understand how sophisticated criminals target and manipulate their victims. Your case documentation is extraordinary, Dr. Chen explained during a research review. Most addiction studies don't have this level of detailed evidence. The combination of psychological progression and financial data creates unique opportunities for understanding these behaviors. Our analysis revealed how professional success could actually increase vulnerability to exploitation. The same traits that drove career achievement, confidence, competitive nature, risk tolerance, became weaknesses when targeted by sophisticated manipulation systems. These platforms specifically exploit professional identity, Mark explained during a team briefing. They know exactly how to appeal to successful people's ego and self-image. The manipulation is precisely calibrated for psychological impact. Working with addiction specialists, we mapped how the gambling sites engineered psychological dependency. Every aspect of user experience was designed to create and maintain addictive patterns. The sophisticated manipulation became clear as we analyzed thousands of similar cases. Look at how they structure the progression, Dr. Chen demonstrated. Early wins create confidence. VIP treatment appeals to ego. Gradual escalation normalizes increasing risk. It's a perfectly engineered system for psychological exploitation. Our prevention protocols expanded to incorporate these psychological insights. The behavioral analysis that had tracked financial patterns now included sophisticated monitoring of psychological indicators. Each refinement helped identify potential victims before significant damage occurred. The integration of psychological understanding with financial security is revolutionary, Maria noted. We're not just protecting money, we're preventing the exploitation of human vulnerability. That's a fundamental shift in approach. Most significantly, our work helped develop better understanding of how professional success could mask addiction vulnerability. The detailed documentation of Mark's progression from confident executive to desperate gambler provided valuable insights for identifying similar risks. Your case demonstrates key patterns, Dr. Chen explained during a review. The intersection of professional achievement, psychological vulnerability, and criminal exploitation creates specific behavioral signatures. Understanding these patterns is crucial for effective prevention. The psychological insights transformed how financial institutions approached client protection. Banks and investment firms began incorporating behavioral health considerations into their security protocols. The dismissive attitude that had enabled Mark's addiction was replaced by systematic concern for client vulnerability. We're seeing a fundamental shift in how institutions think about financial security, Richard observed. The recognition that psychological factors are crucial to financial protection has changed basic operational approaches. Your work has created new standards for client care. The exposure of sophisticated exploitation networks triggered unprecedented regulatory attention. Federal agencies began implementing new oversight requirements based on our prevention protocols, recognizing that traditional financial monitoring had failed to detect these psychological manipulation systems. Your behavioral analysis models are revolutionizing how we approach financial regulation, explained Thomas Richardson, Senior Director at the SEC. We're no longer just looking at transaction patterns. We're identifying and preventing the psychological manipulation that enables financial crimes. Our team worked closely with regulatory agencies to develop new compliance standards. The security systems we'd created for tracking addiction-driven behavior became the foundation for broader protection requirements. Financial institutions worldwide had to implement versions of our prevention protocols. The regulatory impact is extraordinary, Jennifer observed during a compliance review. Your personal experience with detecting gambling addiction has transformed into international standards for financial security. Every major institution now has to maintain behavioral monitoring systems. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit incorporated our methods into their investigation procedures. The patterns we'd identified through monitoring Mark's addiction helped create new frameworks for detecting and disrupting criminal financial operations. Your prevention systems changed how we approach these cases, Agent Wilson explained. Instead of chasing individual transactions, we can identify and disrupt the behavioral patterns that enable entire criminal networks. It's much more effective for prevention. Mark's testimony about how criminal organizations exploited psychological vulnerabilities helped shape new protective regulations. His experience as both a victim and an unwitting participant provided crucial insights into how these systems operated. The regulatory requirements now address both technical and psychological aspects, Thomas noted. Financial institutions must monitor not just for suspicious transactions, but for behavioral patterns that might indicate exploitation. It's a completely new approach to protection. Our prevention protocols became mandatory elements of financial security systems. Banks, investment firms, and pension funds had to implement behavioral analysis capabilities that could identify potential addiction-driven activities before they became catastrophic. The regulatory framework you've helped create is unprecedented, Jennifer said during an implementation review. We're not just protecting against financial crimes, we're preventing the psychological exploitation that enables them. That's a fundamental shift in financial security. The impact extended beyond traditional financial institutions. Online payment systems, cryptocurrency exchanges, and digital trading platforms all had to incorporate versions of our behavioral monitoring. The criminal network's use of technology for exploitation led to new requirements for digital financial services. Your systems are becoming the global standard, Maria reported. Every major financial platform has to implement behavioral analysis capabilities. The prevention protocols you developed are now basic requirements for operation. 5 years after discovering Mark's gambling addiction, I sat in my executive office at Blackstone, reviewing the global impact statistics of our prevention systems. Over $50 billion in potential losses prevented, thousands of families protected. from financial devastation and numerous criminal networks disrupted. The woman Mark had once dismissed as financially naive had created something that transformed the industry. Your work has established entirely new standards for financial protection, Richard commented during our annual review. What began as specific protocols for gambling addiction has evolved into comprehensive safeguards against multiple forms of financial exploitation. You've fundamentally changed how we approach financial security. Looking out over the city skyline, I reflected on how thoroughly our lives had changed. Mark had completed his recovery program and now worked with our team, using his experience to help strengthen prevention systems. His journey from addict to prevention specialist reflected the transformation we'd both undergone. It's remarkable how your personal crisis created such positive change, Dr. Chen observed during our final consultation. You transformed intimate knowledge of addiction behavior into sophisticated prevention technology. That's extraordinarily rare and valuable. Our marriage had found a new equilibrium based on genuine respect rather than assumed authority. The financial discussions that had once consisted of Mark's condescending explanations now became collaborative analyses of system improvements. His experience as an addiction victim helped strengthen the very protocols that had exposed his behavior. Never imagined my biggest professional contribution would come from my greatest personal failure, Mark reflected during a team briefing. The expertise I used to hide my addiction now helps prevent others from falling into the same traps. It's a strange kind of redemption. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. His dismissal of my financial capabilities had directly enabled the development of revolutionary protection systems. By assuming I couldn't comprehend his activities, he had given me the perfect opportunity to document and analyze patterns that now helped safeguard millions. Most significantly, our work helped establish global standards for preventing financial exploitation. The systems we developed continued to evolve, becoming more sophisticated at recognizing and preventing destructive patterns. Each refinement, each improvement, each new application helped create better protection against financial self-destruction. The pension fund that Mark had nearly gambled away was now secured by the very systems his addiction had helped create. The woman he had told to focus on your little investment job had become a recognized authority in financial security, transforming personal tragedy into worldwide protection. You've created something extraordinary, Richard noted during our final review. Not just technical systems or security protocols, but a fundamental change in how we understand and prevent financial exploitation. That's a legacy that will continue protecting people long into the future. Looking back at the journey from that first suspicious transaction alert to our current global impact, I realized that exposing Mark's addiction wasn't just about saving our retirement or our marriage. It was about using that experience to prevent others from facing similar destruction. The skills he had dismissed as unnecessary had become tools for protecting countless families from financial devastation. The final victory wasn't in the professional recognition or the system's success. It was in the countless families protected from the devastation we had nearly experienced. Every prevented crisis, every early intervention, every protected family represented a personal triumph. The woman Mark had underestimated had not only saved our future, but helped secure the futures of millions of others.